Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Coach's Corner. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach.
My name is the Uncle Junior, and I go by the Consistency Coach.
And we are your coaches for Coach's Corner. This is a new year, but some things just aren't going to change. So, like we said last year, if you're here and you're not looking to grow and you're not looking to do anything with the information that we share with you, then you may not be in the right place. But don't leave. Stick around because you might have a change of heart. Because if you're wanting to make an impact in your life, be impactful in other people's lives, and grow and experience the best version of yourself, then I believe you're in the right place. You were destined to be here to hear the sounds of my voice and the Consistency Coach's voice on this evening so that we can give you something that you can use right now moving forward. So without further ado, let me talk to my brother, the Consistency Coach, the Uncle Junior himself. Brother, how are you doing on this beautiful, fine evening?
Man, I'm doing well, man. I am doing well. I hope you are too. I am super excited about getting ready to get into this topic, only because backstage you said you're gonna like this one. Now, you don't usually say you're gonna like episodes.
Yeah.
So when Coach say you're gonna like an episode, y'all need to tune in. So I am tuned in. I am ready. I hope you're doing well. I hope everything is going well in your life, personal life, social life, spiritual life, all those different things like that. We are well-rounded individuals, and I hope that all aspects of those areas of your life are going well as we start off this new year. So
yeah, I can say so. Yes, I am in a peaceful space. I am grateful, thankful, very appreciative of connections, relationships, things of that nature. Because a while back, I kind of decided that I was going to be intentional about relationships, and of course, within the space of intentionality, we can see where we can improve as well. So I'm not saying that I'm perfect when it comes down to a relationship, but I became intentional about it. So I have relationships with the people I have relationships with because I've been intentional about that. And we kind of talked about that last week or a couple of weeks ago, whatever. But that's just it. And so I'm extremely pleased with the relationships that I now have in my life, but I am not content because in the space of relationship, like I said, the relationship is a ground, is an area, an environment for growth. So it's not that I'm looking to be complacent in those relationships, but I'm extremely pleased with those relationships and how they're going. And that's one of the reasons why I'm excited about this particular conversation, because this conversation is all about networking. Now, I want to go back to where we first met, if I may.
mhm.
We first met through a mutual connection, Ken Rice. Shout out to Ken, right?
Yeah.
And you were inquisitive about becoming a John Maxwell certified speaker, coach, and trainer.
hmm
And Ken pointed you my direction because he knew I'd already went through it. And
hmm
so someone else who introduced you to the concept, and I believe I can't remember exactly what I told you, but I think it's someplace along the line to make it short. Man, do it. Just do it.
hmm
Enjoy it. And what I really want to do is kind of like address our experiences. Not that we're trying to recruit people to do so, but
hmm
address our experiences at the conference. Because going to the conference, you were around hundreds of people you've never seen before in your life, and you had to network with these people. And I don't know about you, when I left, I had a stack of business cards like that. Like literally, I mean, it's like every day I'm just shoving business cards. I ran out of my business cards to give out. But I made sure that we all connected on Facebook and things of that nature. So that's why I'm excited about this, because if you've never experienced an environment like that, like it's different. It's refreshing. No one is in there with a sad face. No one is worried about what time they got to go to work. Nobody's talking about their bills they need to pay, any of those things. So that was my experience in a nutshell. If you don't mind, could you kind of like share yours real quick? Because I think that's the great segue into this conversation we're going to have.
Yeah, it was definitely a interesting event. Like you mentioned, everybody there is for it. Well, no one there, like you don't see sad faces. You know what I mean? It's not like going to, certain other conferences where you speak to people, they may or may not speak back, they may or may not have a conversation with you. but there, everybody is there. Almost everybody there is part of a business, has a business, some sort of leader or something like that. Or, it's some people that are just, regular people, don't have any of that stuff. But for the most part, it's a lot of like-minded people. And when you can just walk down the hallway and you speak to someone and they say, "Hey, my name is so and so, and it's nice to meet you," different things like that. And they're genuinely, um, I don't want to say excited, but they're genuine when they are approach you. It doesn't feel or look like they're trying to put on a front or anything like that. And you're always going to have outliers, but I think for the most part, that's not that. Everybody's friendly, everybody's light, everybody's nice. You can be yourself. People came up to me and was like, I just got to meet him. And I didn't think it was anything special. And it's not. It was the way I looked, a short, stocky-ish 5'6" guy with a big gray beard. It's not something that you see in those spaces or corporate America a lot. So my presence alone sometimes attracted me to people. But we talk about the fear. I think when I kind of learned that day one, it became easier to become more comfortable talking to people. And then once I started getting the feel of everything, but man, that's just it's an amazing time. It's an amazing event. If you are a leader of any type of such, I would highly recommend, what I mean, taking that time, taking that money and investing in yourself. It is well, excuse me, it is well worth it. It's like you can get a couple of associates or bachelor's degrees in a sense with the training and stuff like that you get. Um, so I don't know, man. I'm about to start spinning off and
No,
going
no,
down the wrong rabbit hole. So
no,
let me chill.
you're doing fine because what I
Mhm.
heard, like we had to be, and it was so it was to kind of give people the understanding. It's a lead up to the event, so there are
Mhm.
certain things that you do
Oh
as
yeah.
you're leaving home before you get on the plane to make sure that you're mentally ready to get there. So they kind of set the conditions for the conference before the conference happens. Now, they were very intentional about that. So everybody who signed up for the conference, you would get emails and it would give you like the things like the road to IMC.
I
And
signed up late, so
you
I
signed
ain't
up
get it. I know y'all remember y'all telling me about what we had to do when we got there. I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna deal with. I'm gonna do it when I get there.
yeah. And
So
again,
but I'd had some. I was like halfway through one of the trainings when I went. So
yeah. And again, to everybody who's listening, this is not a promotion for that. We're only
yeah,
using that experience as a springboard into the conversation that we're having. And my point is that they were very intentional about connecting with you before you got there so they can set
yeah,
the conditions. For me, I tend to call that meaningful connections. It's not like they had a connection with you, especially when you got there and you met these people. It's not like they connected with you just for the sake of connecting. Because
yeah.
from that situation, from that environment, we've carried on some relationships out, since then. Like there's this gentleman that I think highly of. I think is an awesome guy, and we're connected on social media. His name is Kendrick Lynn. If you know Kendrick Lynn, Kenrick, not Kendrick, Kendrick
Mhm.
Lynn. Like shout out to Kendrick, man. Kendrick is an awesome guy. Well, I met Kendrick there, and so the thing that I enjoyed about it is that they weren't empty connections. They were like meaningful. They were intentional. Like they really were interested in who you are. You will get in conversations with people from different parts of the United States, different parts of the world, and they're literally asking you, like, what do you do? How are you doing that? Like, how can I help? Like, I would get that from time to time, and then it's like, oh, okay, cool. Some of the ideas that I got from a young Filipino lady because she shared with me, like, I can't have like a on-site event. I said, tell me more. And so we just started exchanging information. And so that's kind of like where I want to go because I like the fact that you brought up the fear aspect because that's the thing that prevents us from having those authentic connections when we do meet people. So In your opinion, given that experience and all of the other experiences that you have as well, like what does meaningful connection mean to you? And how do you think it differs from traditional networking approaches?
Mm. Meaningful connection. I'm going to start right there. So I think a meaningful connection is a connection that provides me with meaning and what I need. And what I mean by that is in every connection, most people are not connected to people unless that person can offer something of value. Now, and that something of value could be a phone call from time to time. It could be a conversation. It could be money. It could be whatever, you know? So I think a meaningful connection, first of all, is an exchange of value between two people, right? So this relationship that we have is a business relationship and it's a personal relationship. It's a connection that is meaningful because it could potentially provide financial resources. It gives me a place to share common ideas and have conversations with like-minded people, person, you. And it can be a personal place to where I can go and vet personal things in my life through. So that's a meaningful connection. And how it differs, I think, from a traditional networking is that sometimes some of the traditional networking is only about one aspect of that. And that may just be the network to get a to get a desired outcome. I am connecting with Coach because Coach has 21,000 followers and he's raking in 45,000 a month on YouTube. So I'm going to try to do a traditional networking with Coach so I can get on there. I'm not saying that that is wrong, but I am saying that's a little bit different than a meaningful connection versus a traditional networking approach. And I think that with the meaningful connection is more to it than just transactional as far as resources or financials. I think it's a lot more layers and it goes a little bit more deeper. So that's my take on this question.
I love it. I love it. I think you're spot on, to be honest with you. Um, a meaningful connection is a connection that you create with someone else, where you have an exchange of value, you have an exchange of ideas, you have an exchange of um, just like morals and things of that nature. Like you're genuine about connecting with the person, not because of what they got, not because of what they make, not because of whatever. Like to that particular essence, like we are generally you are genuinely interested in the person to where you're trying to establish some type of connection with them, hoping that this evolves to a more meaningful relationship, to where, like you said it previously, the traditional networking approaches just simply means that I greet you with the intentions on getting you to buy something because I'm trying to sell something, or at the end of the day, there's something I want you to do. It is purely, like you said, Unc, it is purely transactional. We are connecting because I'm looking for a transaction to happen. That is all. I don't care about you. I don't care about your family. I don't care about what you like. I don't even care about what you're trying to get out of this event. When I'm connecting with you from a traditional networking approach, it is all about what I want. That's the difference between traditional networking approaches and meaningful connections. Now, again, going back to the aspect of the fear thing, because I think I want to bring that into it before we press forward. The aspect of the fear thing, I think the fear presents itself largely in a traditional network approach because you're more focused on the thing that you want than generally getting to know the person. It is more natural for us to connect and communicate because we are relational beings. So if we can get to the point of forgetting about any future transactions, just connecting with the person, then what you will find is that maybe the transaction may happen later. but be more intentional about connecting with the person, because the person is far more valuable than their transaction. I think it's like, I think it was Zig Ziglar who said, um, how do you say it? He said, the more people the more people you help get what they want, eventually you'll get what you want. And I think that's really what it's all about. Connect with people from the standpoint of serving them, not just from the not for the standpoint of trying to get what you want out of them. And so you can't get to the point of serving someone else until you learn the person. Now, I got it. There are certain aspects to where you go to a certain event because you're looking for a transaction. That's totally different than what I'm talking about. But still, in that aspect, you can still create meaningful connections when you go to an event to where there are expectations of transactions taking place. So that's kind of like what I wanted to say in response. I hope I didn't refry the French fry, but at the end of the day, I just think that it is important for us to dissect the difference between meaningful connections and networking approaches and the traditional networking approaches.
No, I don't think you. I don't think you refried or reheated the French fry. I think you added additional layer to what was already said. And that's what I just want to do right now is add one more little piece to this. This does not mean that a traditional networking event is a negative thing. We're not saying that one is good, one is bad. Those types of traditional network relationships are great. We don't have the space and the capacity, I don't think, in our life to have a very meaningful connection with every single person that we come in contact with. You know what I mean? We can't have, if you think about the owner of a company, he doesn't have a meaningful relationship with every single one of his stockholders and every person who buys his product or buys that product. But those are, he can go to an event with a lot of people in the company and have a traditional networking event where they can build off each other. They can get with other companies and learn different things like that. But I just wanted to say that it doesn't necessarily mean it's a negative thing. Transactional relationships are good too. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, look, Coach Cool, I'm just trying to get in and get something this. As long as you're transparent with it, I think that's okay. You say, hey, Coach, I like what you got going on over there on or with the Hearts of Men. I like to come on, be part of the panel or something like that. I think I can add some value, but I think so. I think we can work together and maybe build something and get, maybe some resources or help more people or something. So I think those are relationships are okay as well. They're not negative.
So, question:
Hmm.
Do you believe? Do you believe that I may be missing out on a meaningful potential relationship if I only go into a transactional opportunity without the intention of creating meaningful connections?
I believe you can. I also believe that that's okay. I don't believe that just because I don't believe that I should want to have a meaningful relationship with everybody. So I think it's okay to say that, what, I just want to have this type of relationship with that person. Because like right now in my age of 49, I'm not really looking for a whole lot of
Yeah,
brand new meaningful relationships. I have 30 and 35, 40-year relationships with people.
right.
You know what I'm saying? At my age, I know pretty much who my circle is. Not saying that people can't come out and stand on the sideline and play in the game sometime, but for the most part, my circle and my team is pretty set. But again, I am open-minded enough to know that there are going to be people who are going to come along, who are going to take up some of that space. I'm going to allow to have some of that space. You know what I mean? You for one, somebody who came along in the last few years. I wasn't looking when I retired to have no new friends. I was like, I'm good, So yeah, I think that I do believe, yeah.
Yeah. And I asked that because I know as someone hear that, they were like, well, wait, that don't feel right as I'm listening to him say that, right?
Why?
Um, And you know, like you said, that's okay. It's okay if it doesn't feel
Yeah.
right. But a different perspective, I think meaningful relationships present themselves at just the appropriate time for the individual. And so,
Mm-hmm.
what do I mean when I say that? I believe, like you mentioned, capacity. I love the fact that you mentioned that because I believe when you have these meaningful connections don't always spawn into meaningful relationships or
Mm-hmm.
even long-term relationships for that
Yeah.
matter. Meaningful,
Seasonal.
exactly. Meaningful connections are connections that you create with people to where at the end of the day you say, hey, if you ever need anything, let me know. Like I'm a phone call away. I didn't tell him I want to be his best friend. I just said, if you need something, let me know because I want to make sure that the person that I present to you today is the exact same person that I caught that I am actually displaying to you tomorrow. So even if
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk to him, like say I just met him at the event. That's what I'm talking about. If I just met him at the event, if I don't talk to him for 6, 7 months, that's okay.
Yeah.
But if you just happen to reach out and call and say, "Hey, this is Garfield Martin. Remember we met at the conference and blah 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 blah." Come the dude with the beard, yeah. What's up, man? Good to see you. Okay, good to
Yeah.
talk to you, stuff like that. So now it gives us something to start with. On the other side, transactional connections, like nah, I don't remember no God. Where did we meet at again? I
Yeah.
don't. So it's like we never spent time when we connected to learn anything about one another because the transaction was the focus. To where meaningful connections allow you to build some type of memory about an individual, so that when they call or if you call them at a later point in time, because you ran across this person was saying a thing when they said this thing, it reminded me of him when we met that one time and he said he was doing this. Let me see if he's still doing that. Maybe I can connect you two together so you guys can work together and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So I think it's important for us to understand that what you said wasn't wrong. We just have
Mm-hmm.
to understand the difference. And when we understand the difference, now it gets to the fact to where I don't have the capacity for 100 meaningful long-term relationships. I don't have that capacity. Why? Because at the end of the day, there's not enough time in the day. There's not enough. I don't have enough
Do
emotional
it.
intelligence to deal with that many people on
Yeah.
that level.
Too
Right?
many.
Way too many. So I think the capacity of the person matters. And here's why I say that because when I have these relationships, I want to make sure I am serving them and serving them with value. I don't want to give you surface level stuff. I want to make sure that when you're receiving from, when you sit down at my table to eat, you eat meat. I don't want to give you like, a Pop Tart and say, okay, you just ate. Now, what's happening? No, I'm not feeding Pop Tarts. We're trying to feed
Mm-hmm.
meat over here. That's why when you made the notion about coming on and no, you don't just get to make a phone call with me and say, hey, man, I think I can add value. I will see.
There
You know what I'm
you
saying?
go.
I get to judge the value that you add and determine whether or not you come and have a seat. It doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So and the reason why I can say that is because I'm very protective of the people that we serve. I don't want to give them just anything. I need to be able to listen to you, how you talk, what's your perspective, what's your angle. Because some people got an angle,
Mm-hmm.
some people have an agenda, and I need to understand what your agenda is before you get behind the microphone and start trying to feed the people. No,
Mm-hmm.
they're not accustomed to eating cheese toast.
Yeah.
They need some sustenance, right? So it's
Yeah.
just stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because it takes us to the point to where I think it's essential for us to rethink the way that we network with people, right? And again, not saying that the transaction that takes place is bad, but moving beyond the transactional mindset is in essence what we're getting at. So that said, how can we shift our mindset from a transactional to a more relational impact? I'm sorry, how can shifting your mindset from transactional to relational impact the way you approach networking events? And I'm asking this because I go back and address the fact how they walked us into the conference. So, floor is yours, sir. What are your thoughts?
Man, I've been to Maxwell events, conferences. I've been to counselor conferences. I've been to McKinney-Vento or homelessness conference through education. So I've been different types of conferences, and they're all different. How you approach when you go into these conferences or any networking event is huge because some people go in there because the district got some extra money and they're going to pay for you to go on a trip for 3 or 4 days, and you get to go and just listen to people talk and blah blah blah. And the rest of the time, you can stay in a hotel, you can go to the bar, you can hang out, and you can vacation for a few days. So for some people, that's their agenda. Some people go in there, it's like, hey, look, I'm going there. Not like you said, but one of the things you did was you exchanged cards. Some people say, man, I'm just going there and I'm just trying to get as many cards as I can so I can get as many email addresses so I can sell my email addresses to the highest bidder. Who knows? But there are some people who are there for that purpose, who just are trying to collect information. So I think when you shift your mindset from, hey, look, you know what? I'm just going there. I'm going to walk up to coach. Hey, sir, how you doing? My name is so and so. So here's my business card. Deuces, and keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? Like you mentioned, the impact that you can have on like the meaningful relationship. You know, I thought about that a little more when you said something, and it was pretty much like, you know, that meaningful relationship. Like the meaningful relationship does not have to be a relationship that I speak and talk to you every single time. That meaningful relationship can start with an impactful meeting that we've had and we've met each other one time. But I'm just like, man, like you said, the dude with the beard, I like him. So we had a great conversation. Now I got something moving and shaking. I'm gonna hit this guy up and see if he want to jump on board. You know what I mean? So when you have those meaningful relationships, I think they reward or they have the ability to grow the relationship and to grow whatever it is that that relationship is about. So in this case, if we have a transactional relationship, it's only going to go certain far. But because we have is a little bit deeper than that, and we it's not just transactional, it's more relational, as a relational impact. So now there's, yeah, I got to do the show notes for next show. So I know that coach need a couple of days. So if I'm just transactional, look, I'm putting them on this date. If you don't get them, you don't get them. Me knowing more about coach, he need a couple more days to process. So I'm gonna put him out on Wednesday instead of waiting to Friday morning to put him out. You know, different things like that. So I think that it's beneficial to both parties, or it can be in the future for whatever, if you have a more meaningful relationship, that's based off of trying to build a relationship or at least a meaningful experience versus it just being transactional. And people, I'm gonna say this last little bit and we're gonna keep it moving. But look, people that go to Walmart, they go to Target, they go to fast food every single day, you know how it is. You don't like the person who's just been transactional with you. You want somebody when you come up there, hey ma'am, how you doing today? What can I get you? That's what you want. You want people to be more relational with you. Now, this is not a networking event, but we're just speaking in general. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes meeting people at a restaurant can be a networking event. Sometimes meeting or talking to the person behind the counter can be a networking event. I was at Bojangles a couple months ago, and that man, the dude was in there talking about freaking Bitcoin and day trading and different things like that. We made a connection just like that within 5 minutes on the at Bojangles. So you never know what situation you're going again, but I don't know. I kind of spun off and I started talking about Bojangles and stuff like that because, you know, like I said, people may understand it better if you looking at something transactional as something as simple as going to Walmart or Bojangles. You go into Bojangles and they say, hey, you know, what can I get you? That's a transactional thing, but it's different when you go over to Chick-fil-A. The customer service is different at Chick-fil-A than it is at your hood McDonald's. We just saying. So it is what
I think it's I think,
your relation. Look, hey, when you go to Chick-fil-A, it's more relational.
yeah.
It's more impact. They want your service. They want you to come back.
I think it's interesting that you're talking about chicken and wearing your chicken hat today. That's
Oh
rich. That's
yeah,
rich.
yeah. And look,
That's
I've been
rich.
watching chicken videos for the last 2 days, bro. In a couple years, bro. I'm telling you, look, everybody, look, in a couple years, about 5 years, they and Shell, we moving to Texas, maybe Texas. And we're gonna get our farm, we're gonna have us some chickens. So I need to know about these chickens before I move. I can't wait till later on.
I love it, man. I love it. I like everything that you just said, and I'm agreeing with you 100%. I think have you ever been like out to a restaurant? I'm gonna use that for an example. Have
Mm-hmm.
you been to a restaurant and you and I don't know about you. I'm just gonna say what I expect if I go to the restaurant. It's not just the food,
Mm-hmm.
it's the experience. I don't
Mm-hmm.
go to the restaurant to get the food. The food is a byproduct of me going to the restaurant. Sure, I am going to make the transaction because I'm hungry. I'm just gonna call it what it is. But I'm looking for the experience. I'm going to pay for the food and I'm going to tip for the experience. So, have you ever been to a restaurant and your server had the most blah attitude that you've ever experienced in your life?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why is this person my server today? Like, why did I get this person?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, like the experience is terrible. The food might have been good, but the experience been terrible because the server just did not talk to you. They just answered questions. They didn't necessarily refill your drink. They didn't come back around and ask, how's everything doing? How can I help? Is there anything I can get you? You guys good? You guys want some dessert or whatever the case may be? Like, hey, ma'am, I like that shirt. That's a nice shirt. Where'd you get that shirt from? Like, but then on the other side of it, and I think real estate agents might be the best at doing this simply because I think their training takes them through that. They are all about the connection, really, in the because you came in the office for a reason. So
Mm-hmm.
we're not gonna they're
We
not
already
gonna
know you want a house.
we know you want a house. I
Yeah.
need this information from you so I can know what kind of house. But while I'm getting this information, I'm intentional about the connection. I'm asking questions, some of the stuff I need to know, like how many people in your family, do you have any big, you have little kids, whatever the case may be, like what are your needs? But then they get after the likes. And I remember when I was buying my house in Texas, like my real estate agent got on my nerves because all she did is talk to my wife. I'm paying for the house, but all she did is talk to her. She
Mm-hmm.
was smart because she know that she bought the house. I paid for the house. That's
Mm-hmm.
really how it is. And I'm sorry, men probably ain't gonna like that. But if you really stop and think about it, that's the truth. Because for me, the only thing I cared about was the yard and the garage. If my yard was nice and I had enough garage space, I'm good. The inside
Same.
of the house, that's her thing. So she spent more time, and I'm listening to them. Now I'm in the car. I'm driving. We get to the spot. Me and my wife get out the car, and the real estate agent, she speaks to both of us. She talks to the wife.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to the wife, they talk about everything about what was on TV last night. They talked about shoes. They talked about, favorite, designer clothes, where you go buy them from. And I'm looking. I said, boy, she is working her. I get it.
Yep.
I
Your
get it.
wife ain't buying a house from nobody else except for that lady.
That's exactly how it turned out being. When those two, because that's how it was. I was just there. When
Mm-hmm.
those two settled on the house, they just looked at me and say, "We want this house." I'm like, "You ain't even part of the process. You just helping us along." And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like what it's like. It's
I
like,
want this house.
sure, yeah, exactly right. We want this out. Sure, the transaction is going to happen, but I don't have to have a transactional approach to the person. The person is still a person. I don't treat the person like, come on, give me your wallet. Come on, hurry up, get it, get on. No, you don't treat the person like that. You treat the person like a person. So when you shift your mindset from the transactional mindset to a more relational mindset, you're connecting with the person simply because they're a human being. In fact, if I recall correctly, if you're in business, you're the thing that you do, whatever that thing is, that's the service. But you're more so in the people business. Because if you realize that you're in the people business, then you connecting with the people is the reason why they want your service. That's why
Mm-hmm.
that's why companies like Samsung and Apple are like killing the cell phone industry.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, they connect with the people. They listen to what the people want and they give the people what they want to a certain, within reason. And I think from that perspective, and I use those because they're like the two major competitors, and in essence, they become almost like the conglomerate. But they realize that they're still in competition with one another. People can leave you and go buy from somebody else. So when you treat a person like a number, they may buy from you right now, but you're not going to get that long-term relationship which has them to come back and buy from you at a later point in time. So it doesn't really matter what your business is. Even like you said, you've been to several conferences, right? Same here. I remember going to a real estate conference, and these people was just straight transactional. They made you believe in the midst of conversation that they were interested, but they really wasn't. They were just giving you compliments. It's a difference between giving a person compliments and being relational. Compliments are not relational. Compliments are simply compliments. So we have to understand that when we go into a thing, not looking to drain a person's wallet, but looking to connect with the person, looking to get to know them, find out what they want, things of that nature, and find out what their values are. That's different because now that person has a connection with you. And then if they don't buy right now, and I'm just talking from like traditional transactional setting, if they don't buy right now and they leave, when they come back, they're looking for that person because that person made them feel good when they were there. So I think that's important when we look at it, shifting our mindset from transactional to relational, because not only is it important, it's necessary. And
Yeah.
I know I got a little long winded on that, man. I
No, you
apologize.
good, man.
So the other part moving forward is like the power of active listening. And we talk about active
Mm.
listening all the time.
Yeah.
And again, that kind of takes me back to the restaurant setting. You want to feel like your waiter or waitress is actively listening to you. So I think that's important. So I will ask this question here. What techniques can you practice? Can we practice to become a more active and engaged listener in your networking conversations?
All right. So chat, let's just be real. All right. Chat, I know chat can back me up. Bro, do you ever like zone out when people are talking? Like I know I can't be the only one. And sometimes it's not even on purpose. Sometimes it's a knock. Like I've been in here before. We've been on a show on Tuesday nights, on Friday nights or something, and I'll hear something. And being the protector of my home that I am, if I hear something, my spidey senses are going to go off, and I'm gonna be like, "Hey, what is that?" So that's a distraction. But that's a little bit different than just not being engaged. So, but I have wandered off mentally where I've talked to people, not even on purpose. I've tried to engage with people, but sometimes people are boring. Sometimes I'm boring. Sometimes people don't want to hear what I got to say, and sometimes I don't want to hear what other people have to say. So sometimes I'm just may not be as well as good as the engaged, active listener as I should be. So, Unc is going to be transparent right now and say that this is something that I am still working on. I am still working on trying to be a more active and engaged listener. Um, so, some techniques you can practice to become a more active and engaged listener in your networking conversations is first of all, put this joker aside. Like right now, my phone is on do not disturb. There's about 5 people in this world right now that can get in contact with me. And that's because I got my phone set up that they're the only ones who can bypass my do not disturb. So I think I don't know how many times, and I have been guilty of it before, having a conversation with somebody and also being on my phone and telling them, go ahead, keep talking. I'm paying attention. So, in all actuality, sometimes we are paying attention, and sometimes we are what coach say or don't say multitasking. You ain't really multitasking. You just shifting your mind from one thing to another. Um, so yeah, I think one simple technique is put your phone down and listen to the person. Just put the phone down. Don't be distracted.
I like that. I agree. Um, and just to kind of get through this question so we can get to the rest of them, because I was a little long winded on the last one. I think we all know the textbook techniques, right? Eye contact, head nod, questioning, things of that nature. I think I want to say, for me, I think the thing that makes me a more active listener is to stop talking about myself. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people struggle with. They spend so much time, especially in a networking engagement, they spend so much time talking about themselves, their resume, their accolades, and things of that nature that they're not even curious about the other person. So if you want to become a more active listener, put yourself in the situations where you can listen more. don't talk about yourself. Ask them about them. And if you do that, asking effective questions, then what you'll find is that they will talk with you more because you're expressing a degree of curiosity towards them. Um, so that's just my answer for that one, short and sweet. But I also believe that that takes a degree of emotional intelligence, right? Because in this world, we're conditioned to talk about ourselves. Now, I know a lot of people don't like standing in front of people talking about themselves, but when they get with people, they start, laying their resume on the table. Like, I used to do this, I used to do that. I graduated with this, and I got this, and I got this, and so forth and so on. But man, you didn't even give that person any room to be in a conversation. So it's like, and I'm sure you've experienced that when you've been in conversation with people, all they did is gave their accolades. So I'm just going to ask this one: How can how can you recognize and manage your own emotions during challenging networking situations to improve outcomes? And here's why I asked that, because I believe one of the biggest reasons why people do that is because they're nervous, right? And the only thing they really know to talk about is like what I've done. And I don't necessarily know how to have a conversation with Garfield because I mean, this dude he got on this nice suit, he got on this, fedora, like he's clean. And I mean, I got on a suit and everything, but that brother right there looks like $1 million. So it's like, how do I do that? How can I recognize and manage your own emotions during challenging networking situations to improve outcomes?
You got to spend time looking at that person in the mirror, either figuratively, and literally. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you was talking about the other one, that is something that I have been guilty of. I have been guilty, and I'm still guilty of it sometimes because it's natural to want to talk about yourself. You know more about you than anybody else in the world. That is the most comfortable thing. You know more information about yourself than you probably do any other subject, and then also comes that nervousness, the fear, and the dead space, the silence. So I don't want to have silence in the conversation or that awkwardness. So I will keep talking. So how can you recognize and manage your own emotions? I think first of all, you have to, like I mentioned before, you have to start looking inward. You have to do self checks, do all the basic stuff. Look at information, do research, look at some TED Talks, some podcasts, get some coaching, some counseling, all these different things, because the hardest thing sometimes about recognizing and managing your own of anything, the hard part is recognizing. A lot of times it's really hard to recognize because, like I said, we know who we are more than anybody else. We have the most knowledge about ourselves more than anybody else. Like, no matter how much time I spend with Coach, I'm still going to always know more about me, you know? Um, and sometimes me or ourselves, sometimes we don't do a good job of recognizing and managing our own. Ouch, let me stop. I don't want to step on somebody's toes. Because everybody in the chat, everybody out there is perfect at recognizing and managing their own everything. I forgot we are talking to the most empowered and most knowledgeable chat in YouTube, and they don't go through these things. But for the people that may be watching that are not part of the chat, may not be part of this conversation on the other side of this conversation right now, how do you recognize? Sometimes we just have to get some information from other people.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's just the opposite, though. In my opinion, I think
Mhm,
we recognize a lot when we're nervous. I think we
mhm.
recognize when I'm fearful. I think we recognize that in ourselves. We just don't know how to manage it, right? Um, and so going to the
Yes
recognition.
and no.
Okay.
I was a nervous talker for a long time. Still
Hmm.
am. I didn't recognize when I was 18, I didn't know I was a nervous talker. When I
Right.
was 30, I didn't know I was a nervous talker. It wasn't until I got some information or read something or found out that this is something that goes along with insecurities.
Right.
So I think, yes, what
Hmm.
you said is absolutely true. Yes, you do recognize it.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we recognize, but we don't know that it is that thing.
Correct.
Like I didn't know it was that thing,
Right.
So,
And
but
that's what I was getting at. I think
okay.
no, you're good. You're good. I think we recognize that I'm not feeling like I normally feel when I'm relaxed. I think
Mm-hmm.
we recognize when I'm sweating because
Mm-hmm.
I'm standing before 50 to 100 people giving this, keynote or whatever. I think we recognize that my heart rate is a little accelerated right now, and I got to calm down, but I don't know how to in the midst of that because I'm still focused on the wrong thing. So because my focus is on the wrong thing, I might be more worried. And I'm not saying that this is you, but
Mm-hmm.
in the examples I just gave, like you're more focused on what they see when they see you than what you're
Bingo.
giving them in the midst of giving them what you came to give them. And so being able to recognize, because you're going to display those signs that I just talked about, right? Recognizing is one thing. And again, it's important for us to take inventory of ourselves before going into the room or going into the building or going into the network event or before approaching said person. Take inventory of ourselves. How do I manage it? I can manage it a number of different ways. Make sure that I'm focusing on the right thing, right? That's something that you can be intentional about doing. I shouldn't worry about what you see when you see me. It is what it is. There's nothing I can change about that. I should work it. I should make sure that I am focused on giving you the best version of myself while I have your attention. The other side of it is that I can, breathe. That's the other part. I think a lot of time the rapid heart rate brings in short, choppy breaths. Get full real quick, let it all out, and then go to work. I think
Mm-hmm.
that helps you to relax sometimes. Some people do like little different things, like you'll see them do their hands like this or whatever. But what they're doing that you may not necessarily notice is just pinch yourself. If you pinch yourself real quick, it kind of gives you a real quick shock. It's like a little technique. It's not something that people talk about a lot, but it's a little techniques to kind of get you back in focus. Everybody comes up with something for themselves. You have to find what works for you in prior to doing so and while doing so. Because trust me, that thought that you had that made you nervous in the beginning, it didn't run by the time you started performing. It's like, I'm going to wait till you start performing and I'll be back. Don't worry about it. Go ahead. You told me to sit down now, but don't worry. I'm going to stand up as soon as you start talking. And it happens that way. So what we got to do is get to the point to where we understand the techniques that I use to manage how I'm feeling when I'm a little anxious about what I'm currently doing. So I
Yeah.
do like the fact that you said that because I think you were saying the same thing, and I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes you don't necessarily know what it is, especially at the age of 18. I have
Yeah.
no idea what that looks like. This is my first time doing this. You want me to stand in front of formation and call cadence? No,
Mm.
it's a little too soon for that, Sergeant. Too
Yeah.
soon for that. And I think this
Positive self-talk is a way to manage too.
second.
Positive self-talk is a way to manage your emotions. I like that one. I
Yeah,
like I'm a positive self-talk guy.
I agree with that, but I
Let's
can't.
go. You got this.
There you
Let's
go.
go, baby. Like all of those things, like that's positive self-talk. Like you got this.
But here's
Like
the trick.
I
Here's the
ain't gonna I ain't gonna go out, but man, we always looking for somebody else to boost us up, man. We got some stuff in us too, man. Y'all gotta start dig down in there. You
yeah.
done had some accomplishment. Go down there and dig and find them accomplishments and use that positive self-talk.
Yeah, but here's the trick with that one. If you are not doing positive self-talk before said event, when you call
Yeah,
yourself trying to do positive self-talk right before the event,
yeah,
you're not going to believe
yeah,
it. You're
yeah.
not you're not going to believe it. You're trying to
Praying
run.
ain't gonna work either. You can't. I'm just saying you can't.
Yeah,
You ain't did nothing for you. You in the math class. You in college. You taking math class. You working on your degree or whatever like this. You ain't did nothing. You ain't studied for the whole semester. Praying ain't gonna help you pass that test the night before. You know what I'm saying? It ain't gonna work.
absolutely. I think in conjunction with this, right? I think
Mhm.
one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is how to get to the point of creating value. Um,
Mm.
because they're in the space of being transactional, but they want to create value in the space of being transactional. And so I think it's important for us to understand that there's a difference. So, how do you define authenticity in your networking approach? And why do you think it's important? Because Well, I'm just leave that there. We're going to get to the second part. Go ahead.
Mm. Well, the second part of this question is the easy part. Why do you think it's important? I think authenticity is important because being who you are is you eventually, if you're not authentic with who you are, you may get found out and it may not be a good thing for you. So how do I define authenticity? Authenticity in your networking approach is just being honest, maybe transparent, but definitely honest and truthful about who and what you actually are. You know, if you can't do something, don't say you can do it. You know, some people, well, I'm gonna leave that up to the other people. Some people say that, you know, you should accept every job and you'll figure it out. I personally don't necessarily agree with that, you know, but I don't have any problem with someone who does. I think both of those can work. But I think that when you define an authenticity, it is the honest to good, truth, downright, unwavering reality, right? So my authenticity, if I go to a networking event and coaches there, is to be who I am. Hey man, my name is Unc. This what I got going on, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. Because at John Maxwell, it's okay. It's not egotistical to talk about what you do. In that position, in that space, everybody wants to know what you do, and you want to know what everybody else do because you want to be able to network with other people. So y'all need to have a conversation about what y'all doing to see if y'all paths line up. So how do I define it? You know, this goes back to the truth, who I am. If I go to a networking event and coach is there and I'm like, hey man, I got these things going on. And then he's like, all right, man. I'm like, yeah, man, I've been doing podcasting. You know, I've been having all these guests on here and all these different things. And then coach like, yeah, man, you know, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's start working together. And then coach come to find out, man, that I really ain't talked to nobody. My YouTube channel's broke. You know, I don't show up on time. I wasn't authentic with who I am. And then now that relationship, even though that relationship could be very meaningful to me. Like this could be my shot. This could be my shot now. And I'm over here, I'm working over here, but now I wasn't authentic with who I am. And now I have been found out. And then now this goes back to the second part. Now coach don't want to work with me no more. Coach, like, you fired, brother. You know what I mean? You getting together, we over here on this network, and you saying all these good things. But every time I go to your channel, you posting videos of girls shaking their behinds. Like that don't line up. Even in my personal life, if I am in networking and if I am authentic with who I am, then who I am and who I present that in all aspects of my life. When you go over to my YouTube, when you go over to my Facebook, my Snapchat, when you meet me in person, when you hear me on different podcasts, that is who I am. So I think that's what being authentic is, that no matter what space, in what setting you're at, you are who you are. And again, why do I think it's important? Because if you're not, you get found out, it may not be a good thing for you. People may cancel you, may not be able to work with anybody else forever. A lot of famous people who wasn't authentic about who they were got found out, and now no one in Hollywood wants to work with them again. So,
Hmm. So how do they know? Like, I love what you said, and I'm agreed. There's nothing to add. I promise. But I do want to ask this: like, if I'm not being my authentic self, and I want everybody to listen closely to this question and the answer you receive.
mhm.
If I'm not being my authentic self, and I meet you at a networking event, how can you determine in real time that I'm not being genuine, that I'm not being authentic?
You may not be able to. That's the thing about it. You
Okay.
know, there may be some situations, some people say we're someone who's stuttering over their words. Well, I stutter sometimes. So especially when I'm nervous. So that's we can't count that in. I think one may be an over glamorization or overemphasis on what they do. That may be a red flag that that person is not authentic with who they are. Um, I'll just leave it at that. I think that's I I have, but it's another thing that goes along with that, and that is let time. Like you said, your grandma or somebody told you that.
Mhm.
Like I believe in that. There are some people who were in my circles, but they're not anymore because time had the time. I met them. I thought they were authentic. We
Mhm.
came, we did stuff. Next thing you know, they really wasn't who they are. So the hard thing about it is sometimes you just don't know. There are red flags. There are trainings and different videos, and you can figure out. The more you're around, the more you've been living, the more you're around people and different people, you can start to see certain things. And like I said, I think one of the big one is the overinflation of self.
I do like that one. Um, and I agree 100%. I think when you hear a person talk a lot about themselves, they're selling themselves. They're
Hmm.
being transactional in the moment because they think that they feel that they are the product. And I have to talk about me as much as I possibly can to get you to buy what it is I'm selling. Because what I'm selling is me. I want you to buy me. That's really what it is. But I also believe that it's a difference between being nervous because I'm nervous about a thing. I'm generally a nervous person. This is not the norm for me. But I also think that there's a different level of nerves that show up when you put on a different suit and you want to
Mm.
be the suit and not be the person who you are. It's a different nervous tick that happens over here than the nervous tick that happens here when we hit the play button, right? We are nervous because we want to make sure that we're giving you a good product. That person that put on a suit is nervous because they want the other person to believe that they are a good product. And so I think those things are all true, but I do like the overinflation of themselves because you hear their ego speaking more so than you hear them speaking. So I do like that.
Or
Um,
here's another one. You remember you want to be authentic. You mess around, you out there on the dating scene, and y'all dudes out there lying to women. Eventually they're gonna find out the truth. I'm gonna leave it at that.
just give time. That's it.
Give time.
Yeah, man.
Hmm.
I love it. I love it. And I think if as people are listening to what we're talking about, I think what we're talking about could be considered a community centered approach to networking. And again, community centered, not community center, a community centered approach to network. And again, go back and listen to some of the things that we talked about, finding ways to be more relational as opposed to being transactional, because that's the concept that we're talking when we talk this. So I'm sorry, I accidentally took it down again.
Hmm.
What does a community centered approach to networking look like to you, and how can it transform your professional relationships?
Community centered network, community centered approach. Um, right now we are casting on YouTube on at least your channel and on mine, right? On Sundays, you guys are over on TikTok. You guys are having conversations over there. On YouTube, on certain Saturdays, there's another conversation going on over there. All these people are part of a community when it comes to creating content, having conversations. So you look at Uncle Junior Network, you look at Empower Perspective Podcast, you look at Elevated Dialogue, you look at Coach's Corner, you look at Hearts of Women, you look at all of these different things that we got going on, right? That's what a community centered approach to networking looks like. I don't have to have a conversation with Lisa Keys every single week, but I can get to Lisa from Coach, right? Coach needs something from somebody that I'm connected to. Coach can get to that person through me. Hey, Coach, like, hey, we got something going on. John Maxwell having this thing. I got 2 tickets. I need 2 people to go. Boom. You want to go, brother? Absolutely. I'm John Maxwell certified. I can go too. Hey, Coach, man, I reached out to some people. They looking for some people to possibly be on a podcast for a couple of times, and they're gonna pay y'all. They're gonna pay us some money. Networking. I need, you know what I mean. So I think that's what a community centered network looks like to me. It's people who have the same goal or concept or sense or similar visions, similar mindsets, all working towards the same type of thing. And how can it transform your professional relationships? I think that you can take the energy and things that we learn in our personal life and then apply them to our professional relationships.
Mhm.
Relationships are relationals, are relationships. Coach, relationship me and coach have, there's a lot of similarities between his relationship and mine. Is the same one that I have with my wife. There's respect there. There is a whole bunch of other different things that goes along in those relationships. So it can transfer. If you have a good personal community centered networking, man, you mean to tell me I can't learn something from Lisa or from Gaddy that can help me in my professional relationships? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it. I have to cut it short because I'm looking at the time.
No, you're good. You're good. Because I think you hit all of them. You hit
Mhm.
shared values and goals. I heard building trust and authenticity, engagement and participation. Like that's a huge one for me. Engagement and participation.
Mhm.
Reciprocal.
Engagement and participation.
That being
Sheesh.
said, y'all hit the like button. Reciprocal
Ooh.
support is huge. Let me say it again. Reciprocal support. And then last but not least is long-term relationship. So
What
if
kind
you
of
got
support?
reciprocal,
So that means I should support you, and then you should support me.
right? But I
All
don't
right. So that
necessarily.
means when I'm over there having my show on Friday night,
Mhm,
I should be able to support you just
mhm.
like you should be able to support me. I get it.
Yeah,
Okay. But support looks different.
right. But
And
hold on.
I will say this. Sometimes it looked like sharing a video.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
True. But here's the deal. I don't wait on you to do it before I do it.
Period.
I think a lot of times what we do is I want to see how dedicated you are to me before I dedicate myself to you. That's backwards.
Mm-hmm.
That's backwards. That's not, that's transactional.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? You give me, I'm sorry, that's not, that's more of a bartering, right? You give me, then I give you, right? So that's kind of like what that looks like. So I'm not necessarily defining a relationship now. I just wanted to see if you know how to do relationship before I actually participate in a relationship. No, why would I do relationship with you if you've already shown me that you can't do relationship? So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the other part to go along with it. To your point, time is running short here, but I do want to get into this real quick. Okay. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Short scenario, two questions. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Short scenario, two questions. Everybody get ready because it might be a longer answer that you can give, but type as much as you possibly can. So if you're not on your laptop, make sure that you're on your laptop. And if you're not on your laptop, get a pen and a piece of paper, write it down, and then share it with us later. So here's what we got. Community networking event. You're at a community business fair, you notice a booth hosted by a well known local entrepreneur who has successfully launched multiple businesses and is actively involved in mentoring young entrepreneurs. They are known for their approachable nature and willingness to share insights. You admire their work and would love the opportunity to connect with them to gain valuable advice for your own business endeavors. Answer the following questions. The choices provided are starting points, not the complete answer. So I want to say that. So, what is the most effective way to initiate a conversation with the entrepreneur at the fair? A, approach them immediately and ask for business advice. B, compliment their booth setup and ask how they came up with the idea. C, stand back and wait for them to approach you. And D, introduce yourself and share a brief story about your own entrepreneurial journey. And if it's neither or a combination,
So what is the most effective way to initiate a conversation with the entrepreneur at the fair? I
there,
don't know if there is a right. Go ahead.
there is no wrong answer, by the way.
There is no wrong answer. I would, yes, I agree with that. I think the only way you're going to know the answer to this is if you have to know a little bit about yourself and possibly you know a little bit about the other person. But what is your approach style? How are you? Are you a person who's more shy? Are you a little person who's more outgoing? I think sometimes you have to look at yourself and figure out what type of person you are before you figure out how to initiate a conversation with someone. But I do think maybe there's a combination. I think one, if you're looking at A, you definitely approach them. I don't but I wouldn't say immediately. You know what I mean? I think you go down to B, compliments are always nice. You know what I mean? Compliments a lot of times will get your foot in the door. You know, I mean, right now, and if I were like, hey, I tell somebody in the chat, oh man, I look at your photo, man, your hair look really nice. Like somebody's gonna make somebody feel good, you know. Um, Standing back is okay and waiting, but not standing back and waiting for them to approach you. You know what I
Right.
mean? How many people are at the booth at the time? Is there an opportunity for you to have the conversation? But I definitely think that you do approach, you do compliment, and you do introduce yourself and share. I don't not necessarily share a whole bunch, but I think at first sharing is later. I think complimenting and getting to know more about them first is more important than what I have to say to them, because if I show that I'm interested in them, they're going to see that I'm interested. And that
Yeah.
may open up an opportunity for them to say, hey, well, tell me a little bit more about yourself, you know, because if you look at these people who are somewhat famous, they're getting people coming to them begging all the time for a hookup or for a connection. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I like your response. I think the only thing I would add to it, and it's not up here, is do your homework first. Do
Mm-hmm.
your homework on who the entrepreneur is, what they've done, so forth and so on, so that when you do get the opportunity to talk, you can share your thoughts about what you discovered when you did your homework on them. Not judging it, right? That's where the compliment piece come in. You want
Mm-hmm.
to compliment the thing that you learned about them. Like if you know their story, like man, listen, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I understand that you got here by doing this. Like, if you don't mind me asking, like, what was it like? Like,
There
I
you
think
go.
I think a person would be intrigued just to know that you're curious about their story, as opposed to being curious about their stuff. Too many
Mm-hmm.
times in these events, people would put it out on the table. Give me the stuff. I want the stuff. How do I get the stuff?
Yep.
Well, no. Tell me about you. I want to meet the person because I want to know the person that got the stuff. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then now that kind of creates a different idea. Okay.
Yeah.
After successfully starting this conversation that Mr. Martin so successfully done, which follow-up strategy would be most beneficial for establishing a connection with the entrepreneur? A, hand them your business card and ask them to contact you. B, ask if they would be interested in collaborating on a project. C, request a short meeting to discuss your business ideas in detail. And D, offer to meet them for coffee to hear more about their experiences and insights.
See, everything we said about the last question, doing your homework, knowing your audience, I know we said business card says up here, but everybody's not doing business cards anymore. If you have business card, if you got an app on your phone, if you got a QR code that someone can scan really quick, that may be beneficial as well too. I like kind of asking if they would be interested in collaborating. No, 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 not collaborating. Definitely not asking to collaborate right now.
Yeah,
Um no, I'm not asking to collaborate, especially if it's somebody who's like somewhat famous. Um
too soon.
it may be too soon. Maybe
Yeah,
too soon to ask for the collaboration. Short meeting. I like to if I had to go with a question and I'm just going to give an answer just for this one, I kind of like I kind of like kind of like kind of like C. You see, it won't come out
it won't
because I
come
ain't
out.
100% sure about C. But if I had to pick one closest, if you was like, hey, you got to pick one answer, then I would probably pick C
Yeah,
because it gives me an opportunity to because if we meet, if I'm requesting a short meeting, we have to exchange information,
sure.
right? The podcast for far as B, if we were interested in collaborating, that can come up in the meeting.
Yeah,
I don't maybe necessarily like coffee, um, but that may depend on what time we are at this event. If it's the last one we about to shut down or something like that, hey man, you about to shut down. Hey man, you want to go grab some of the coffee and we talk about this stuff a little bit more. That might be okay. But other than that, I'm probably going to roll with C and let's request a short meeting to discuss.
I got you. And I get it. I get that. Not saying again, there's no wrong answer.
No wrong answer.
For me, I would do D, but I would change it up a bit. But it doesn't necessarily, we don't have to meet today for coffee because you're doing this event. You're probably not going to have time. But I will offer to buy him. I will offer to buy him coffee so I can learn more about his story because I really want to get a better understanding of like how did you do all of this? Like surely you can't give me all the time that you need to explain it here. And so now I'm still curious about him. I'm not even asking for the meeting yet. I'm not even asking to collaborate. I'm not even asking to discuss business deals. None of that stuff. I am asking him about him over coffee that I'm going to buy. Right. And that's the key. And if you don't drink coffee, that's fine. You drink tea, cool. You drink water, whatever you drink, I'm buying it. Doesn't
Bubble
matter.
tea.
That's it. Bubble tea. Whatever it is, I'm buying it. So now it's a different because most people want stuff from him. Only thing I want from him is conversation. And I'm
time.
Right. Conversation and time. So if I do that, now I try to present myself to such a degree. And again, not trying to impress, just trying to learn, be authentic. So now I am presenting myself to him in the midst of like community centered networking. And now I become the person that he wants to collaborate on the project with. I become the person to where he asks me, say, hey, do you do business? Yeah. Tell me about the business that you do. Because I spent so much time asking about him. Now he wants to reciprocate and become curious about what I'm doing. So that's just kind of like my thoughts there. And that's why I say no wrong answer. But when we talk this through, hopefully as everybody is listening, it's like, you know what? I can't wait to go to a networking event because I know what I'm going to do now. Right. I'm telling you, offer to buy them, watch. And it doesn't have to be expensive. They're probably not even going to say, I want to go to Ruth Chris. Yeah, go away. You know what I'm saying? It may just say, yeah, I'd love to go sit down and have a cup of coffee and tell you how I got here.
You know what?
Yes, sir.
New year, January the 28th. So John Maxwell going to have 2 events this year. I think I'm going to put it out there in the atmosphere, and we're going to see what happens. If we decide, you and I, to go to a Maxwell conference in the future, let's discuss possibly offering for someone else to go.
I like that.
And you know what? Y'all heard it here live first. So that is something that me and Coach going to talk about. So there may be something to come in the future. Maybe we can discuss us going and then paying for someone else to be a John Maxwell certified
and I'm gonna put it out there early.
Trainer coach.
Because they do it twice. They do it early in the year and they do it later in the year. So if this is the case, it'll be the one in August. It will not be the one that's in March.
There you go.
Right around the corner. And again, we're gonna talk about it, but I think I'm looking to see something. Yeah, my wheels is turning now that you started that. Just
and I wanted to say it on air in front of everybody else. So if y'all stayed and watched it to the end of the show, then you got some information that people who checked out early didn't get. So
absolutely.
Thank y'all for staying here and tuning in this long.
Yeah, man. Listen, we went long. We appreciate you guys joining us. We're not going to do any actionable advice because I think we just gave you some actionable advice. So that being said, you want to say something to the people before we call it a day?
Man, no, man. Just, we talked about a lot of connection stuff today. You know what I mean? Talked about a lot of different things, gave people some things to think about, ponder, didn't give all the answers, but did give some pertinent information. I think is be very valuable to some people going forward. So, but yeah, man, I ain't got nothing else, man.
Hey, man, we can't give them all the answers. I mean, if we give them all, there's no work
for them. Exactly.
All right, man. Listen, We appreciate you guys. We value you guys. And as always, we look forward to seeing you. That being said, have a great rest of your day and let the best version of yourself, let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else. And we look forward to seeing you next week.